Hey, what is up? Welcome to our first ever Bayside Students podcast.
Let's go. What's up, y'all?
My name is Jared Furs.
I'm Karston Williams.
Hey, we just wanted to take a second as we kind of kick this thing off, and our hope is to help youth pastors get better.
Yep.
We're going to have this tagline that we're going to say all the time: when one of us get better, we all get better. Absolutely. Because that's our hope, man. Big C church focused. I've been blessed to kind of bounce around a little bit. I've worked at medium size. I helped plant a church. I've worked at smaller, bigger. Now I'm here and been here about 4 years doing youth ministry. Karston, young buck.
Yeah, the young buck. I've been a part of big churches my whole life, so I'm really getting to know it because now I'm a part of a church plant, and it's a lot smaller than the other campuses that we have at Bayside. But we're learning and we're growing. It's been pretty fun. So I'm getting some experience. 9 months in, so
there you go. It was smaller. So that's what's crazy, bro. You guys are killing it in Auburn. If you live in the Auburn area, go check out Bayside, Auburn. But hey, this isn't about Bayside. This is about students, pastors. We want to help equip you guys to get better. And so today we're just kicking this thing off. Karston's got a question and we're going to run with this. And every week get some new guests, get some new people. If you got questions, comments, throw it below. Hey, what are topics you want us to cover? What are questions you have? Whether you've been doing this for 20, 30 years and you're like Kurt Johnson and Doug Fields, the legends of it, or Eric with the K, Karston's dad, or you're Karston Williams, just starting out 9 months, hit us up. Let us know what questions, what things you want us to wrestle, what guests could we get and bring it in, help us out. But Karston, kick us off.
The old Gandalf, I have a question for you.
Absolutely.
Can you give myself and everybody else listening 5 things you wish you would have known when you started youth ministry?
5 things. Absolutely. This wasn't like teased up or anything. But here's the biggest thing, man, is I remember in my early 20s, I got hired at a church. I was a sophomore at a small Christian school, got hired at the church in town that I was interning with. And I remember thinking I was ready. Man, I'm God's gift to earth, right? And I remember listening to these podcasts and putting myself in these rooms. And I heard someone say that they didn't become a good leader till they were 30. And I remember thinking, like, that's a stupid statement. I'm 22 and I'm a great leader. And gosh, was I wrong? Like, you know what I mean? Yeah. And so here's 5 things, man, that I wish I would have known, like as a 20-year-old getting hired at this church. And the first thing I remember is leaders are learners. And this is something that I learned when I was about to get fired from a youth pastor position. I had butted heads with my campus pastor. We weren't seeing eye to eye. And I just realized, like, I want to fight to be a youth pastor. Like, for so long, I think I had relied on my intangibles, the giftings. Like, I've always been like a leader because of athletics and whatnot. But I remember, like, I didn't know leadership. I didn't know what good leaders were. I couldn't articulate the laws of leadership. And so for me, I really became a studier of leadership. And what leadership is influence. John Maxwell, if you don't know who he is, Google him, look him up. Craig Rochelle. So I just started, I was really invested in Craig Rochelle podcast, and I would listen to his. And then I remember he had a guest on, and then I would follow that guest. And I would be like, I'd go read The Energy Bus. I'd go read John Maxwell's 21 Laws of Leadership. And I just started really becoming a leader, and I wanted to learn. And here's the thing is, as I talk about this, the greatest leader of all time is Jesus Christ. So anything that you're doing should be like dipped and saturated in Christ. It should be Christ-centric. And that's why I think I love John Maxwell, because no matter how big he is a Christ follower at his heart. Yeah. Craig Rochelle is a pastor. And all of those things are saturated in who Jesus was and his humility. Man, there is nothing better you can do as a young leader than to surround yourself with great voices. And it's not just like reading books and doing things like that, but also like mentorships. Put yourself in circles and rooms where you can just glean and learn. Yeah. Like one of the blessings we have here at Bayside is we have so many great pastors and employees that just are phenomenal leaders and would be killing it anywhere else. You know what I mean? There's too much talent here. And I know most of my churches, there are so many hidden gems, whether it's business, dads, you know what I mean? Like people that I could put myself around to grow as a leader, whatever avenue or facet I'm in.
So follow-up question for that is, how would you find someone, how do you know, like if you're at a church that's smaller,
Yes.
And you're like, I can't find the senior pastor to help me out. How do you know somebody who would be good to help mentor me?
Absolutely. Well, number one, your senior pastor most likely is not going to mentor you. Yeah. That's what I mean. It sucks and it's tough. Like you go from youth ministry, right? And you're interning and you have this youth pastors, and youth pastors are studs, right? They're all mentoring down and they're discipling their interns and all these things. And then you become the student's pastor and you realize no one's here. Like there's not, like my first church, I remember I had a dude, his name's Todd Skinner. The dude's a legend. He's still at the church. And I remember he was mentoring me in our students department. And I remember when I left, my assumption was that happens at every church. And I was wrong. I did not realize the blessing of what Todd was to me. And so how do you find it? Great question. I remember there's going to be people in your church that you're just going to rub shoulders with, right? You're going to go on a mission trip and you're going to meet this guy, or you're going to be at church and you're going to strike up a conversation. Most of the mentors I've had in my life were people that were like usually parents of students, or just like people that I've kind of met in the church crossing. You know what I mean? My last church I was at, one of the best mentors I had, he worked for Mondelez, which sells Oreos and all these things. And just he was a dad of one of my students. I'd gotten in some, weird situation with my campus pastor. And I remember he just invited me out to lunch and just got to know me. And then it became like a regular thing where he really started to speak truth into my life and to just encourage me and give me books and give me things, and a lot of my leaders would help me out. Also, I would seek it out with like youth collectives or whatnot in the areas, like go to lunches. If you have I can promise you, go to Download Youth Ministry. There's a youth collective somewhere in your area of other youth pastors. When I was in Santa Rosa trying to plant a church, there was this old head out at this church called Hessel Church out there. And it's like, it's old. Like these people are old out there. It's a great church. They've been there for like 100+ years,
That's
which
crazy.
In California is wild.
That is wild.
And I just started hanging out with their youth pastor because I just wanted to grow. And he had so much wisdom, so much experience. And then I put myself in rooms, right?
Yeah.
I would go to National Youth Workers Convention, or I go to these things and go to conferences like Thrive Conference and stuff, because I just want to be around good leaders.
Good.
So
good.
Number one is leaders are learners. Man, yes. Apply that. Number two is act like you're married. Act like you're married, okay? This sounds wild, but Karston, you are a single guy. You got a girlfriend.
I got a girlfriend.
Not
engaged, not married.
Not engaged, not married. Don't believe the rumor mill. I don't know when you're watching this. Maybe this is years later and people are like, he's married with 20 kids.
Yeah, 20 kids.
But I am married now. I have 5 kids. When I first started ministry, I was a single dude. I didn't have a girlfriend. And I started running youth ministry and doing things at such a pace that was great for a single dude with no responsibilities. And then I got married. And then I had kids. And I remember going to this conference. It was Youth Specialties. And my wife and I were in probably the biggest fight we've ever been in. And our marriage, I thought I don't know if this is going to work out. She obviously doesn't get what God's called me to anymore. And I remember we're there and I went to this breakout by Doug and Kathy Fields, the GOATs. And if you don't know who Doug Fields is, Google him. Read his first 2 years of youth ministry. If you're starting out, the dude is a legend. Also, if you're going to get married someday, he has 7 Ways to Be Her Hero. Great book too about being a husband. And I remember I'm sitting there and Doug and Kathy are just talking about ministry, pouring their hearts out. And I'm just like, how can my wife not get this? You know what I mean? And so after, everyone's going to Doug, Doug. And I'm like, I'm going to go talk to Kathy. She gets it, So I go over to Kathy Fields and we're chatting. And she goes, where's your wife right now? And at the time, so we're in San Diego. My wife is at the hotel. She's 4 months pregnant with then, Jaden would have been 8 months at that point. And she was like, why is she there? And I remember what do you mean? And he was like, what did your wife used to do? And I was like, well, my wife used to be a volunteer. She used to do everything with me. And now she's, a mom. And she's like, do you think that transition is hard for her? And I was like, absolutely. And she was like, well, let me just ask you this. When you say you're going to be home at 5 p.m., what time do you normally get home? And I was like, oh, I don't know, 5:36. She was like, do you think, she's like, let me ask you this. Do you show up on time to a meeting at church? And I was like, absolutely. She's like, so somehow the church is now more important than your wife being on time too?
That's so good.
And she she roasted me. It was just oh, I went back to the hotel. I apologized to my wife. We got marriage counseling. We've now been married for almost 13 years coming up.
17 kids.
And
Great.
17 kids. Not yet. I mean, we got 5. But here's the thing is, man, if you're a single dude, you're going to build unhealthy rhythms. And what happens too is so often, I see this a lot of times, I don't know what it is with women in ministry, but women in ministry, they put so much investment into their ministry that they don't have any time for themselves. Whether they want to be married or not, you being a single person, your time is nowhere less valuable than my time as a married man with 5 kids.
Yeah.
So don't see your time as that. Take time off. Respect yourself. Make sure you're bringing the healthiest you every single day. Don't run yourself dry. Make sure that you know that you are going into battle spiritually and you need to be spiritually full. The problem is when you're young and you don't have any responsibilities, you can go and do and be everything. The problem is that rhythm is going to change. And I'm not saying don't be that as a single person. I'm just saying understand there's going to be a time if you do get married, if you do have kids, that those rhythms are going to set you up for failure. And the best ministry is your house. If your house falls apart, you don't have a church ministry at all. You know?
It's convicting.
Yeah, and it's tough, but I wouldn't change how I did youth ministry as a single person. Like Paul says it, like it's better to be single because you can do more.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And I'm not saying don't do that. I'm just understanding if you want to be married and have kids someday, that you need to start building in healthy rhythms into your life spiritually and physically so that you are set up for success. And because youth ministry is a marathon. It's not a sprint. I don't think you really experience a healthy youth ministry till about 5 years at a church.
Interesting.
I've been at churches for longer than 5 years. I've been at churches for shorter 5 years. At 5 years, you will graduate out of class, and that will get your culture, right? That will get you, and then they will come back as leaders. And when that happens, that's the sweet spot.
It's different. That's cool.
Because you have people who trust you, who are invested into you, and now they get who you are and what you're trying to do, and then they can give that culture. You're just duplicating yourself and your vision and what God's called this church to. So 5 years, to last 5 years at a church, you got to be healthy.
It's convicting for me because I sit and I think about, there's so many times where I'll get home at 11. I'm like, well, I'm a single guy. Like it does not matter.
Yeah.
Doing middle school and high school. So 2 nights in a row, like I'm out and I think about that and I'm like, my dad has said the same stuff to me. And it's stuff that this is a reality check for me. And there's probably a lot of people that's like, oh man, I have so many things. I got to say yes to people. I got to exceed expectations in order to get the promotion or the next thing. And I think for me right now, it's convicting because that's just pride. Pride saying I have to be the best. And you don't have to be the best.
Yeah.
The best is probably going to be having a good ministry.
Having a great marriage. Having a great, you know what I mean? Like you won't be a youth pastor for your entire life.
Oh, yeah.
You can be a lifer. Yes, absolutely. You can be Eric with a K. You could be Doug Fields. You're in it for the long haul. But guess what? Their marriage is their most important ministry. Yeah. Their kids are their most important ministry. Yep. I was sitting at lunch a few weeks ago with some youth pastors, and it's over at William Jessup, or I think it's just Jessup now, right? Yeah. Jessup University Christian School. And there's Fritz. He's the youth pastor, professor there. And this dude is talking about how he's raised his kids, and he's had 3 kids. 2 of them love Jesus, and 1 doesn't. And he was one time sitting with this kid that doesn't follow God right now, and his child told him, "Dad, you are a really great pastor and father to other kids." I started crying, man. I was like, it was like watching an episode of Bluey. It broke me down, man. I was dying, and I'm just like, that would be the worst thing ever as a father to know that one of my kids felt like I loved somebody else more than them. And the truth is there are kids that I've mentored, discipled that like they have full access to me as a child, but at the end of the day, they're not my child. And so like to build in a healthy rhythm and act like we're married now is going to really help us and set us up for the long haul of ministry.
It's good.
Whatever avenue, youth ministry, senior leadership it is.
It's good.
Number 3, okay? Impact trumps process. Impact trumps process. This is a saying that they say here at Bayside Church all the time, and it could not be more true. The truth is we are going to set a lot of things into our schedule. We're going to put a lot of things into place. And at the end of the day, whatever's going to have the most kingdom impact is what should matter the most. And now what I mean is, let's say you're doing a youth event, right? You're doing a youth event. You guys just got a new building. You're going great. Wednesday night, you got this, all of it set up. And then women's is like, hey, we're putting on a women's conference in here and you guys can't meet here. You got to go figure it out.
Yeah.
Now, you can turn this molehill into a mountain and be like, no, we have it reserved. We got this. But the truth is, if we can be more big C or even little c church minded and understand what's going to have the most impact, then it can really help us reach more people.
Yeah.
The more moms you got coming to church, the more youth you're going to have coming to church. More middle schoolers. Absolutely. Maybe not high schoolers, but definitely middle schoolers.
Yeah.
And the more successful kids ministry is, the better foundation you have to build your middle school on. And the better your middle school ministry, the better your high school ministry could be. And the more students that you can impact and influence for the kingdom of God. And so understanding that not everything is a mountain to die on. And there's great books for that. Like I love Mark O. He's got a big one, Getting Fired for the Kingdom of God. There's other good youth ministry books out there. Mark O. wrote Middle School Ministry. Mike Yaconelli wrote Getting Fired for the Glory of God.
Oh, okay.
But read those books. Become like, leaders or learners. But understand not every molehill needs to be a mountain.
It's a great point. Yeah.
And it's like, especially when you're in the early days of a church or you're at a smaller church where space is limited, you know what I mean? You got to understand the more you can be a big C church or a small C church, mentality, what's going to have the biggest impact? How can I help out? It's going to really help you with influence and church politics. And we'll talk about that in the future. But understanding that like the more like influence you can have in a positive way at your church, the more ability and yeses you're most likely going to get. If you can help out in these ways and you can understand that I'm actually kingdom minded and big picture, the more that when you do have that crazy ask, or you do need to be the other inverse where you're like, hey, women's, can we actually slide in this week? Or you know what I mean?
Yeah.
It's going to they're going to understand that impact trumps the process.
Yep.
Yeah.
That's good.
And influence is key in that.
Yeah.
All right, let's keep moving, okay?
Good, yeah.
Number four, make your yes, yes, and your no, no. Make your yes, yes, and your no, no. Your yeses, every time you say yes to something is no to something else. And every time you say no to something, it's yes to, like you're saying yes somewhere else.
Yeah.
So make sure that you know what your yes is and what your no is. You do not need to speak or be at everything. And there are some things that are not worth your time. Yeah. Now, I understand that you are going to get invited to every bar mitzvah, every quinceañera, every play, whatever it may be. You're going to be invited, and not every single student's thing do you need to be at. So equip your staff, have them be the ones that can go to things, but understand that every time you say yes to be at something else, you're most likely saying no to your family. Or every time you say yes to a speaking engagement over here, you're saying no to this opportunity over here. I love Bob Goff talks about this idea that he keeps his schedule clear, and we're not Bob Goff, and I don't have, I was never a lawyer and have money.
You're not
and
a diplomat for
Uganda. Yeah. So I don't have the ability to do this, but understanding that like my time is important.
Yeah.
And so even when I mean make your yeses yes, I keep my morning super clear. Like I like to work out with my wife. And I understand that every time someone tries to schedule coffee with me in the morning, it's normally a no because that's my time with my wife working out, And that's a yes because my health and my relationship with my wife is more important than most anything else I can do.
It's really good.
You know what I mean? And understanding that like even when it comes to our finances, your yeses are yes and no's to other things. When it comes to your budget, man, plan your budget out so like, hey, when it comes December, I want to buy my leaders T-shirts and sweatshirts. And so I'm going to say yes to that and budget item that line now, understanding that pizza in, summertime may not be as important to it.
Yeah.
So understanding your yeses and your no's.
Good. I dig it.
You dig it.
So we got leaders are learners.
Yes.
We got act like you're married.
Absolutely.
Impact trumps process, and let your yes be your yes and your no be your no.
No. And then here's my last one is have your 5. Okay. Have your 5. If you were a student's pastor, you need to have your 5. And what I mean is and we're going to talk about this later at a later date. What does that mean? Is church politics leading. You have your 5 people that you're going to say yes to. Okay. You need to have 5 people in your life that you are going to say yes to and that can speak into your life. Okay. Now, you're going to preach a sermon, right?
Yep.
And everyone's going to come up and tell you, that was fire, straight gas. You killed it. And then that one kid's going to be like, it was mid. Yeah, you're trash. Or you're going to have that pastor come and be like, man, I heard your teaching is really, really bad. And you're going to be like, how did you hear that? Yeah. You weren't in the room. How would you know? Yeah. And it's just like, so what you need to do is have the people that it can speak into your life. And I would say you need to have multiple levels of your 5. So what I mean by your 5 is I have 5 people to where if they were to call me right now, it's yes. And I'm going to put that thing at number 1 and it's going to get done. So if my boss, Scott Connor, calls me and he's like, hey, Jared, we need to do this. We need to do this. You need to move middle school. You need to do this. It's just yes. That's I'm not gonna sweat it. I'm gonna be like, hey, my boss asked me to do this. I respect him. Yeah. I know that he knows more of what's going on than I do right now. And it's an easy yes. Now I know if my wife calls me, okay, this is a different circle. So I have my work 5, I have my family 5. I also have 5 kids. So there's a couple that didn't make the list. You know what I mean on the 5. So just kidding. Right. They all don't have cell phones. But if my wife calls me and says, hey, we need to do this, it's a yes. You know what I mean? She calls me in a meeting, I answer the phone. It doesn't matter who I'm in the meeting with. I'm going to pick up my phone. One of my kids call me, I'm going to check my phone because they're on the 5. Yeah. You know what I mean? So I have my work 5. I have my family 5. But then I also have the 5 voices in my ministry that are going to speak into my life. Okay? And so like when I teach a sermon, I will receive the praise and I will receive the criticism, and the majority of it, I will take it like it's a grain of rice. I'm going to understand, hey, there's probably like some truth to this. If it's a great sermon, there's probably some truth to this. I know there's probably some areas I need to work on. If they're going to say this is the worst sermon I ever heard, I'm going to say like, okay, that's, like there's probably some truth to it. Yeah. But at the end of the day, I'm not going to take advice, or I'm not going to take criticism from someone I wouldn't take advice from. I'm not going to take criticism from someone I wouldn't take advice from. So I have my 5 people.
That's pretty good.
It's a Ray Johnson. I think it's a Ray Johnson quote, but give credit where credit's due, right? Yeah. But here's the thing: it's like my counterpart, his name's Vince. If Vince comes up to me and tells me, "Hey, that sermon was fire. You killed it, and this, and this," I'm like, "Yeah, it was fire." If Vince can say, "Hey, you need to work on this aspect, or your transition lost me here," I'm going to take what Vince says and I'm going to apply it to this. And I have a few other leaders within my ministry. I got Doug, Roger. I got these guys and gals. You know what I mean? Like if Brandy Larson comes up to me, Brandy Larson says anything in my ministry, it's done. Like it's done because I trust her opinion as a small group leader in my ministry.
And she'll be straightforward.
She'll be transparent. And that's what I would say is get those 5.
I need those people.
Get those 5 in your middle school ministry. Get those 5 in your high school ministry. Now, that doesn't mean that if they're outside the 5, you don't take it or don't hear it. Like, no, like glean and try to grow. But you should have 5 people at least in every ministry facet aspect of your life to where if they were to speak into something, you would take it and apply it. Yeah. Now, do my 5 overlap a little bit? Maybe a little bit, depending on our friendships and levels. But at the end of the day, it's like if I have someone that's like in my 5 in middle school, I may not take their advice the same as I would when it comes to my life. But my wife, when she speaks into, my pace or whatever I'm going through, it holds a different weight. But get your 5 in every aspect of your life. So,
that's good.
Yes.
Well, I dig it.
Any other questions you got, bro?
This is the only question I have, because this is something that I'm learning.
Yeah.
Actually, I lied. I have 2 questions, but we'll start with one and see where we go. I have a problem with trying to control the salvation of my students.
Mm-hmm. Right? Yes. Oh, man.
I'm not God. Okay?
Absolutely.
And everything in me sometimes makes me just be like, I wish I could just be like, no, this person you're saved. Don't worry. Yeah. Holy Spirit's on you. You're moving. You're all these things. How is what's the mindset? Because then I worry so much about that, and then I also worry about numbers. Yeah. It's like a perfection, people pleasing.
Absolutely. Numbers are important.
Of course. How do I get out of that?
So both are key, man. The one and the many, right? Healthy things grow. So if your youth ministry, if you're like, man, my boss only cares about numbers and this, because healthy things grow. Right. If you're doing the small things well in your youth ministry, it should naturally be growing. Now there's a natural season and turnover to youth ministry. You may have like a big 8th grade class. They may leave. Your youth ministry may, so I would say have annual measuring sticks. Like I used to have a calendar and it would be like August week 1. And I compare August week 1 to, 2023 to 2024 to see, are we growing as a ministry over a year? Because there's ebbs and flows of school years and there's going to be ebbs and flows in your youth ministry, but healthy things grow. So you need to be focused on big picture and growing your youth ministry as you're reaching lost student. Every student that comes is, a salvation, is someone growing in Christ, is hearing the gospel, and them wanting to be there is important. So that's a great measuring stick. It doesn't mean that you die on the hill of numbers, but numbers are important. But that 1, 2, man, is like, they're worth it. It's like the starfish story, right? Like the kid's walking down, throwing one starfish at a time into the ocean. And this guy walks up and he's like, there's thousands of starfish. Like, what are you doing? You're never going to get all of them. He's like, picks up one starfish. He's like, well, I'm going to get this one back to safety, and throws it in the ocean. And one salvation matters, right? I heard a story one time of this guy, and he's just a greeter at a church, and their church was on a major street. And one day this kid walks by, him and his buddy, and he like fought tooth and nail to get this kid into church, to get this kid to sit down. And he got him in, and it's just like, everyone's just like, it's just that one kid. That one kid accepted Christ. Okay, one kid, whatever. Well, that one kid turns out to be Billy Graham. And that one kid has led millions of people to Christ.
Right.
And so the one does matter. Matters. I have that one kid that I've chased. I have that one kid that I'm working and I want him because I feel like Christ has put it on my heart and my prayer and in my time. And I'm praying for him, I'm meditating him. And that's what, like, it's a balance. I hate the word balance, but it's true, where it's like, you gotta be big picture and individual student minded. Now, you as a student's pastor, you can't be focused fully on students. You need to be focused on your leaders and developing leaders to focus on your students.
Yeah.
But you should never lose sight of who those students are that God has put on your heart, because he's put them on your heart for a reason. So healthy things grow. Man, focus on the one, but also don't lose sight of the big picture of what God's calling you to and that impact.
That's good.
So great questions, man. Hey, hopefully this week one was good. Man, hit us up in the comments. Let us know, what are some topics, things you want, guests, things like that.
Yeah, things you want to hear. Any people, if you want to pay for them and fly them out, that'd be great.
Absolutely.
Awesome.
If you want to sponsor us, sponsorships.
Hey, we'll take some sponsorships.
Yeah, we could use some like AC repair in here too, if you guys know it. Like, it's sweaty, it's hot.
Good.
But guys, we're so thankful for you guys and tuning in. Remember, when one of us gets better, we all get better.
Come on.
Hey, thanks for tuning in. Have a great day.